SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB.
Good morning. Senate taxation will now come to order. I need my little guide sheet here. I'd ask everyone that you please take a seat and have your phones turned to silent. If you plan on testifying today, please make sure to sign in at the back with a QR code. Lobbyists, please make sure that you have your badge and the badge is clearly visible. Welcome to those joining us online. And lastly, a reminder that all testimony and questions are to be addressed through the chair. At this time, I would ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Senator Crabtree?
Here.
Grove?
Here.
Lonk?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
Holz?
Here.
Hone?
Here.
Peterson?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Minutes are approved. At this time, I would ask our pages to come forward, tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you'd like to tell us about your future plans, that'd be great too.
Good morning. My name is Lindsay Ronning, and I'm from Hill City High School. I'm a senior this year, and I plan to go to South Dakota School of Mines for industrial engineering.
Great, thank you for being here. And I think our other page just left the room on a task, so we'll have them introduce themselves when they come back. Any personal privileges this morning? Okay, seeing none, just an announcement about the agenda. Senator Carr has asked if he could go last, so we will honor that request, and then we will proceed with the agenda as written, and just knowing that Senate Bill 196 will be last when he can get here from State Affairs. So with that, we will hear Senate Bill 216, a bill to limit the annual valuation increases on owner-occupied single-family dwellings and provide an exception for mill rate limitations on taxing districts. Any proponent testimony?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amber Holz, Senator District 30. There's an amendment out there. It's 216A.
Yes, Senator Crabtree.
I'd go ahead and move the amendment A.
Comments on your motion?
Just purely to get it in the form that the prime sponsor would like to have it in.
Okay, it's been moved. Did we have a second?
Yes.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the amendment 216A. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Amendment is adopted. Go ahead, Senator. Feel free to talk to the bill as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, 216A is very simple. It doesn't raise taxes, it doesn't create a new program, and most importantly, it doesn't expand government. All it does is it answers one question: how do we make sure property tax relief dollars actually reduce property taxes? We saw bills before in this committee that create a fund, and we've debated how money is going to get into that fund. And today we're not here to debate how money is going to get into that fund. We're here to talk about how it's going to get out of that fund. And so all this bill does, it's the cleanest, most direct, transparent way to provide property tax relief that doesn't create more bureaucracy, that doesn't require rebate checks or things that costed millions of dollars to administer. You don't have to decide who qualifies and who does not qualify. You just lower the levy and every property owner sees it directly on their statement. So if money goes into the fund, whether it's from Senator Crabtree's bill or any other funding mechanism, again, we're not here to debate how those dollars get into the fund, just how they must be used to buy down the state education mill levy. That's it. It just locks in the how and guarantees that relief funds cannot quietly be diverted into more government or other temporary schemes that cost more to set up than they return to the taxpayers. This is the best structural way that we have to provide property tax relief in South Dakota, and what we've done for the history that I know of in South Dakota of how we've created property tax relief or provided property tax relief anyway. I respectfully ask for your support.
Further proponent testimony on Senate Bill 216 as amended. Any proponent testimony? Any opponent testimony on 216A as amended?
We did have a Leanne McWhorter
Oh.
online.
Okay, as a proponent?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I guess we had an online proponent.
Leanne McWhorter.
Leanne McWhorter. Leanne, are you with us?
Yes, thank you. And I would just like to say that I do support this bill as amended, and I think that Senator Hulse makes a good point in this, and that it is really a means to make sure that the money goes where it is supposed to go. So I would be in high support of this amendment. Thank you.
Further proponent testimony? Any opponent testimony on the room or online? Okay, seeing none, I would open it up to committee questions. Are there questions of the committee?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Grove.
To the question to the prime, and I don't know, I guess you could stay there. Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm wondering, okay, so this is so your bill sort of works hand in hand with 125. I don't know, I'm confused. Should we have amended Senate Bill 125 and added it to that? Are we?
Madam Chair.
Senator, go ahead.
So I think the goal of kind of doing this in piecemeal was to ensure that each idea as a part of the package or a part of the process was debated individually on its own. And so, setting up the fund was its own debate. How to fill the fund is its own debate. And then how to distribute the fund is its own debate. And so while it does make sense to put that as a part of Senate Bill 125 if there was broad consensus on both of those ideas. But at the time, actually, Senator Dybert was concerned that there would be debate over how to distribute the fund and that would create a 2/3 vote on his bill to set up the fund. And so by piecemealing it out and making a debate each individually, we decided was the best way to do this.
Follow up, Senator? Okay. Further questions from the committee?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Davis.
just for the sponsor. So I get a little fuzzy when we start talking about mill levies and taxing districts, and I'm just wondering, can you help me envision, is this like the general education mill levy from a state? I mean, I wonder if you can help dumb it down for me.
Madam Chair. Yep, so it would be just the state education mill levy, so the general education mill levy and the special education mill levy, buying them down just as we've done in years past. It's just putting that as our, intent into statute so that, there's not somebody that comes along and says, actually, like how we say, oh, we're going to use the housing fund for airports now or something like that. This is for property tax relief and we're going to dedicate it towards property tax relief.
Follow up, Senator. Further questions from the committee? Further questions from the committee? I have a couple. So you had mentioned that Senator Dybert thought that this would, if tagged onto his bill, would cause a 2/3 vote. So when this goes to the floor, if this goes to the floor, will this be a 2/3 vote then?
From my questions to LRC and to the Lieutenant Governor, no. And so we figured out a way to make this happen so it wouldn't be a 2/3 vote, no. But additionally, at the time that Senator Dybert's bill was moving through this body and there were discussions about how we were going to do all of this, there were some, and Senator Dybert himself actually had a different idea as to how he wanted the fund to be distributed, and now he's more on board with this plan. But at the time that started, he thought maybe doing like rebate checks or something was maybe a better idea. And then as he further got down the line, he realized that he was not going to support his original idea. And so that's kind of why this is coming late in the game as we worked through how we were going to do this process.
So then amending his bill with this wouldn't be harmful to his bill. And then if he chose to do that, it could run through so that everyone would have the whole picture, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Chair, it would be totally possible to amend his bill. I believe that his bill made it through the Senate, if I'm not mistaken already, though. So that's why this is being brought, because his bill had already made it through the Senate. And we wanted to make sure that the Senate's stance on how we want this funded to be distributed is sent over to the House side before his bill makes it to the House side, and they can do whatever they want with it.
Further questions from the committee? Senator Blanc.
Good morning. I've been thinking how to formulate my question, and so you're pretty good at picking up what I'm trying to lay down. Thank you for that. Anytime that you see a bill that seems like it's going in one direction, and then it appears to be going in not a vastly different direction, but a different direction, Can you share? It almost looks like a vehicle bill. You know what I mean? Because it seems like it's almost a completely different bill. So can you share how we got from this to this, from 2.5 pages to less than half a page?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I dropped what was Senate Bill 191 from last legislative session, which became Senate Bill 216 several weeks ago, because at that point I didn't know whether or not I wanted to push for that plan again this year. And after hearing the discussions as to what kind of is buy-in and what does have buy-in and what doesn't, this legislative session I decided not to pursue that path. All of you voted for that bill last year, and it just seemed like it was not the right path for South Dakota. And so I was originally going to table Senate Bill 216 until we realized that there wasn't a mechanism to distribute the fund. And so in the effect, yes, I guess it was used as a vehicle bill to catch something that Senator Dybert's bill didn't have in it before this package of bills heads over to the House, to ensure that the Senate's intent of how to spend any money that does end up in that fund isn't declared, because otherwise we're essentially giving the House the full decision on how they're going to spend all this money if it gets there.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, quick follow-up. So basically it is, for all intents and purposes, a vehicle bill?
Madam Chair. Yes, go ahead. It wasn't intentionally a vehicle bill, but individual legislators are allowed to hoghouse their own bills if there's something that needs to be taken care of that they want to affect.
Follow up?
No.
Okay. Any further questions? Senator Hall?
So this is, Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
for the prime. So this is specified for the schools and not for the general overall. Is that correct?
Madam
Go
Chair.
ahead. Yes.
So there's two state mill levies that are for the schools. There's special education mill levy and then the general education mill levy. And the intention of this is to say that any dollars that go into the fund, wherever they come from, would be used to buy down those state set mill levies so that they don't have to be as high, because more state dollars would be spent on schools rather than having to raise those dollars in property taxes locally.
Follow up?
Okay, so my understanding is it'll go for both the special education and the, okay.
Yes, Senator Davis.
Just question for the sponsor along kind of a little bit of a follow-up along those lines. The reason, if you can clarify, my understanding would be the reason to go that mechanism would make the burden would be incredibly less for how you administer this. You wouldn't be asking counties all of a sudden to hand out checks or, make those things. Can you maybe, am I along the right lines of thinking that?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so when Senator Dybert originally proposed Senate Bill 125, his bill was very much longer than it originally, in the form that we saw it, because the bill had a mechanism that would have provided rebate checks, and to the amount that there were several people, like thousands of people across the state of South Dakota, that actually didn't have a property tax bill as great as the rebate check was going to be. So there was administration costs on mailing those checks, printing those checks, and so what you ended up having is the growing of government. First of all, to pay a government staffer to administer that program, cost to send out those checks, and those are all dollars that aren't going directly to the people. And so if we do end up getting money in this fund, it's because we're taxing people somehow, right, with a sales tax or some kind of government fee that we're going to get into this fund. And I think that every single one of those dollars, quite frankly, every single penny of those dollars should go directly to the people in the form of property tax relief, not to pay a government employee, not to send out a check in the mail, not to have to spend thousands of hours with counties figuring out who qualifies and who doesn't. I would like to provide property tax relief in the least amount of government as possible. And so that's why I chose to put this in the direction, and Senator Dybert is also on board now after doing the research that he did trying to figure out that program as well.
Follow up? Yes, Senator Blanc.
I have one more quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
For the sponsor. Would there be any wisdom, and maybe you've already answered the question, would there be any wisdom in just amending Senator Dybert's bill and not need this bill at all?
Senator Payne.
Yes, go ahead.
Madam Chair. I would love to. However, the bill has already made its way to the House side, and at this point, we as senators don't have any control over what our intention is to do that fund. And so if the bill was still amendable by us in the Senate, absolutely. But at this point in the process, we don't have the ability to do that in any other way but with this bill. And so, like I said earlier, I had full intentions of tabling this bill today, but after we realized that we're sending all of this over to the House with no, direction or directive as to how we as the Senate would like that money to be spent, I think it's really important to send this over, and then maybe the House will kill this bill and then they'll amend Senator Dybert's bill, but we have no guarantee that that's what they'll do.
Follow up?
Yes, go ahead.
So Senator Dybert cannot amend his bill now. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Madam Chair. No, Senator Dybert's a member of the Senate, and so he can't amend the bill while it's on the House side.
Okay. But he can speak to, follow up.
Yes, go ahead.
But he can speak to somebody in the House and have them amend it there, though, right? On the floor?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, if a House member chose to amend the bill in this way, then yes, then I would be happy to table this bill. But at this point, I would like to send this package of bills over to the House with our intentions aligned so that they understand what we're trying to do here.
But
Follow.
one more. But the prime in the House could easily amend that, right?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yes, the prime could amend, but I don't know what the prime's intentions are with the vehicle bill, or not the vehicle bill, the fund bill over on that side, and whether or not the prime on the House side wants to have that be a part of their bill.
Thank you.
Go ahead. So I have a couple of questions, and I think some clarification related to that. Is the House prime friendly and supportive to Senator Dybert's bill and to the whole concept in general?
Madam Chair, I believe so. I actually don't know who the House prime is on Senator Dybert's fund bill at this present moment, but that's up to Senator Dybert. It's his bill, and and talking with the person that he's hearing it on the House side, and those discussions may be had. But again, the House is its own separate chamber and can make their own decisions, and so I think it's important to send this bill over there to show what our intentions are, or what the senator that carried that bill's intentions are. He doesn't have a bill out there that he can amend at this point, and so that's why this is happening here today. And to the extent that I hope that the House Prime is able to do that, fine. But there are debates over on the House side from different folks that don't think that this is the best plan, and so I think each idea should be debated in its merits on its own, and not kill the entire idea of a fund because somebody disagrees on the how to distribute the fund. So it's important to do single subjects so that we can have a debate about each individual way to make this happen.
Another question related to rebates is, would there be a way, instead of dispersing individual checks, if it were to be a rebate program, to just electronically credit property tax statements on the bill that the property tax owner gets, they see their line items and then they see a credit instead of getting a physical check, and then you could avoid a lot of the administrative costs of something like that?
Madam Chair, yeah, that's a way to do this. It's effectively doing the same thing that this bill intends to do. So you can put it as a line item that says, subtract something on your property tax bill, but really what this would do is it would make it so that you're not applied that mill in the first place. And so it's even less administration to do what this plan is proposing, instead of having there be that extra step that a county is going to have to change their process of how they print those things. I mean, it's extra steps, whereas this is taking money from a fund that the state government has control over, using it on education to buy that mill down. The mills are set at the state level that we do that every year. The mills are lower, and therefore your property tax bill is lower.
The only thing about that is that the property owner doesn't see that they actually got a credit, which is kind of nice. I think, we all want to try to do something for property tax relief, and if they can see it on their statement, I think they know that something's been done. But there's lots of ways to skin a cat, so I think the important thing is that they get relief. With that, any further questions? Okay, further questions? I will open it up then to committee discussion and/or action.
Madam Chair,
Senator Crabtree.
I'll make a motion to pass.
Discussion on the motion.
Yeah, just briefly, this isn't a new concept. Paying these down is how the state has done this for a long time. So I think that's a good direction. I do think that Madam Chair brought up a good point. I think Senator Dibert was working towards something that we've seen the current administration in Washington, D.C. do right now, which is, hey, if we send out this check, it's a reminder that we're taking those steps. This is clearly an easier way to do, because we've already done it this way. And I think as far as the process goes legislatively, we're looking at three steps to do the property tax cut. One, have a protected fund. That's Senator Dibert's bill, Senate Bill 125, that move forward. Two, you've got to populate that fund with funds from something, right? And so Senate Bill 118 is an opportunity to do it tomorrow. There's other opportunities that have come through here, and there will be more opportunities into the future legislatures. And then three, it's disperse the funds, which is what Senator Hulse has brought us today. And I think she's modeled this after something that works really well and tied it to the fund that we need to disperse from, which would be Senate Bill 125. And so good common sense approach here, and glad that we're sending over as many options as we can from the Senate perspective to the House to make sure that we're at the table when we get these things finally negotiated out. So all in all, very good move by all.
Further comments on the motion? Madam Chair. Yes, Senator Grove.
Well, I like the concept of the bill. I have a problem with the procedure in which it was done. And one of the things that I have thoroughly respected about this whole system is that we have policies and procedures and we follow them and they're protected. And I feel like we are on a slippery slope to doing things in ways that to kind of push things through and even manipulate the system. Senator Dibert can amend his bill. And I don't think that having to achieve a 2/3 vote should stop him from doing that. That is a part of the process. And so I'm just really struggling with that. I feel like at some point, I don't know, we just have to protect what the founding fathers put in place and respect that so that in the future it remains solidly in place. And I don't know, that's my problem right now, I guess.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Davis.
Well, with respect to the previous speaker, I do think we are respecting the process. An amendment was brought forth in committee. We're having a thorough, robust debate on that amendment. So I don't think there's anything not being talked about. I think too, to go back to the three, there's 3 things that have to come together to deliver property tax relief to people. We have to have a bucket. That's why we have Senate Bill 125. That creates the bucket. Secondly, we have to have a mechanism to fill the bucket. And there's a lot of debate on how do we fill the bucket, right? And then thirdly, now how do we get those dollars back to the people? So there's a mechanism there. I think there's always danger in, if someone we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here by attaching a proposal of disbursement to the bucket bill, because then now all of a sudden we don't have a bucket. So I like how we're piecemealing this out to allow the debate, because even in this committee, we've heard from others sitting on this committee that they have some disagreements of how to distribute it. And so then I think this is a respectable, responsible way to not throw the bucket out with the bathwater here, and just have a robust debate on how do we distribute these funds back. And so I don't have a problem with the process. We've had an amendment moved in committee. We've had a robust discussion about it for the last 29-30 minutes. And so I don't think there's anything nefarious happening here.
Further comments from the committee? Senator Hone?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the concept of this as well. I wish that whether it was Senator Dybert or Senator Hulse would have reached out to Representative Massey, who is the prime on Senate Bill 125, just to kind of get their take on this and see if they were willing to amend that. And I mean, I do feel that this probably should be attached to Senate Bill 125. So, I mean, I'm struggling with this as well. It's a good concept, no doubt, but I think they should be together.
Further comments from the committee?
Sure.
Yes, Senator Blanc.
I too think that this is. I think it's well-meaning. I think it's a good bill. What my challenge is that the requirement previously for SB 125 would have been a 2/3 vote, and it's not. Okay, it wasn't.
This wouldn't either.
We'll negate that question then. But it seems like it's being used to advance SB 125 when I don't think that doesn't seem to me like it's going to need that if he works, as a good senator just said, just to work with the prime on the House side and amend his bill. It seems like it'd be a lot cleaner. That's all.
Further questions further comments on the motion from the committee?
Madam Chair.
Senator Hulse.
Well, I mean, I guess I wish some of this would have come out more in questions, but now I'm going to have to use this opportunity to say a couple things. So this amendment was out there last week because this was almost heard on Friday if we would have had time. So it's been out there all weekend. It's not like I just dropped this an hour before committee. In fact, I talked to a couple members on this committee over the weekend about this bill. And again, you were all supposed to be prepared to hear this on Friday. So this was not just a last minute amendment that was out there. There's several people in the room that didn't come up to testify in opposition because I've had the conversations with the relevant people here. This is not a new concept. And I guess all of us, I would like you to sit here and realize that your name tag on your chest says senator, and that you are a member of the Senate, and that you shouldn't leave it in the hands of the House to determine what we're doing here. Our body passed several pieces of legislation, a part of a plan. And while I agree that I would have loved to have had this added to Senator Dybert's bill, like the good senator from Vermillion said, even on this committee, there are slight disagreements and tweaks to the how to distribute it. And so let each bill have its own debate of its own merits as to the up or down of how we're going to distribute it. Create the bucket, debate how you're going to fill it, and then debate how you're going to distribute it. Because on the House side, there's a lot more consternation over the how to distribute it than there is even in this committee. I mean, I think the good chair and I are pretty close to coming to terms with about how we agree or disagree. But on the House side, there's a lot of other opinions. There's double the amount of people in the House, so there's a lot of different opinions. And so you should let each idea live or die based off of its idea and not attach too many things. That's why we have process called the single subject rule as well, that we don't always follow in South Dakota. We have a lot of bills that I would say probably don't follow that rule, but that's what the purpose of this is here today, is to ensure that the Senate's intentions are sent over to the House. And if you want the House to decide how to spend the money that we're raising, fine.
Further comments from the committee? Any further comments? Okay. I just have a couple. I do think that if this bill is going to reference Senate Bill 125, then 125 should be tied to this bill. And, you know, if we're talking about a debate on distributing the funds, I'm not sure that I'm ready to commit to distributing the funds in this particular way. I mean, I'm okay with creating the bucket that they did in 125, so we've got a bucket if we end up having funds. I'm not sure that at this point in time I want to commit to how to distribute them. So I think there were some other good points raised as well, and I agree with a number of those. But I'm also at the point that I don't really want to commit to this is the way to distribute the funds. So for that reason, I will be a no. And with that, I will ask the Secretary to call the roll on the do pass motion for Senate Bill 216A. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no.
Senator Crabtree?
Aye.
Grove?
No.
Blanc?
No.
Davis?
Aye.
Hulse?
Aye.
Hone?
No.
Peterson?
No.
Madam Chair, you have 3 yeas, 4 nays, 0 excused.
With that, Senate Bill 216A is defeated. Well, actually, we need a different motion then again. So is there another motion from the committee on 216A?
I make a motion to send to the 41st day.
Is there a second? Senator Hone?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been moved by Senator Grove, seconded by Senator Hone, that 216A be deferred to the 41st day. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Crabtree?
Nope.
Grove?
Aye.
Blanc?
Aye.
Davis?
No.
Hulse? Excused. Hone?
No. Or aye. Sorry.
Peterson?
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 2 nays, 1 excused.
So with that, Senate Bill 216A has been sent to the 41st day. Okay, we will proceed with our agenda, which is, if I can find it here. Here we go. The agenda's at the bottom. House Bill 1233, an act to modify provisions for a tax collection agreement with an Indian tribe. And we have Representative Poirier with us. Proponent testimony. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Senate Taxation Committee. Good morning. I am Representative Puri Poirier. I'm from District 27. Good morning. Today I bring you a little bit of context before I begin. is taxation issue has been brought to me and was asked to be addressed by the Rosebud Sioux tribe. And I looked at it extensively. I listened to previous versions. I did my homework, and I felt like we needed to go in the direction of what this bill does. This is a step toward, this doesn't address every single concern, but it is a step towards a direction that I hope would be fruitful. I will explain it now. House Bill 1233, it's about transparency and it's about partnership. South Dakota is home to 9 federally recognized tribal nations. Those tribal governments are not municipalities. They are not counties. They are not retailers operating under state permission. They are sovereign governments with inherent authority to govern their lands, their citizens, and their economies. When we talk about taxes on sovereign tribal land, we are not talking about whether taxes should exist. We are talking about who has the authority to collect them, how they are administered, and whether the revenue is reaching the governments that are responsible for providing services on that land. Tribal governments provide law enforcement, courts, roads, housing, utilities, health services, and regulatory oversight, often in places where there is no county or municipality providing those services. The ability to capture and administer tax revenue is not optional for those governments. It is essential to self-determination and basic governmental function. This bill improves the existing tax collection framework by ensuring tax agreements reflect current tax code and ensures remote seller tax and marketplace provider tax are discussed during the negotiations of tax agreements, and the tribes understand these options are available to be negotiated. House Bill 1233 ensures that tribes understand that they also have the option to capture a range of taxes that already exist in state law. When a tribe chooses to impose identical taxes, it does not create new taxes. It does not create a mandated participation. It simply modernizes and clarifies the tools available so that agreements can reflect today's economy and ensure taxes are collected efficiently and transparently. House Bill 1233 also reinforces a critical principle. The state of South Dakota should treat tribal governments as sovereign partners. Transparency in tax agreements builds trust. It reduces disputes and ensures that taxpayers, tribal and non-tribal alike, know where their dollars are going and why. Unlike municipalities or counties, tribes do not receive property tax revenue. They do not have the same access to state revenue streams. As to state revenue streams, tax agreements are one of the few mechanisms available to support core government services on tribal land. When those agreements are transparent, thorough, everyone wins. Tribes, the state, and taxpayers. This bill strengthens governance on both sides. It provides clarity for the Department of Revenue. It provides certainty for businesses, and it ensures tribal governments know remote seller and marketplace taxation can be a part of their negotiations. At its core, this bill strengthens government-to-government relations through transparency and sound fiscal policy. The reality is tribal sovereignty creates the framework that works better for everybody. This is important to note as well, that I work step by step with the Department of Revenue, and I thank them for their willingness to continue to work together for solutions that work. While House Bill 1233 does not fix every concern from our tribal partners, it's a first step towards what I hope to be a new chapter, one that is rooted in transparency, thoroughness, and commitment for a better partnership. House Bill 1233 passed House taxation 11-0, and it passed House floor 63-2. I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further proponent testimony in the room?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chair, members of
Welcome.
the Senate Taxation Committee, my name is Mike Howdyshell. I'm the Cabinet Secretary of the Department of Revenue. I want to thank Representative Poirier for bringing House Bill 1233 and being willing to work with the department over on the House side to get the bill into a format that we think is a good piece of legislation. I just would echo her comments. You know, this is really about strengthening the communication between the Department of Revenue and the tribal governments in South Dakota as we enter into negotiations on tax collection agreements. The tax collection agreement system has been in place in South Dakota for several decades, and it works very well. But it really only works how it should when we have the open dialogue between both sides. Since I've been the secretary, and even prior to that, when I was the general counsel for the Department of Revenue, I've been involved in a number of different negotiations with the tribes on tax collection agreements. One of the things that has certainly been an issue that we have talked about in recent years post-Wayfair is the issue of remote sellers and marketplace provider taxation, which this bill helps clarify that is something that needs to be at the table when we're having these discussions. Just in this year alone, we will be opening renegotiations with 3 tribes on new agreements. These are generally 5-year agreements under most circumstances. And as we look to discuss new agreements with 3 tribes this year and then with all of the tribes going forward, we will be certain to include the discussion of remote sellers and marketplace providers as part of those discussions. So with that, I would just urge your support of the bill. I would certainly be able to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Further proponent testimony.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Ross Garlick Bell. I am the registered lobbyist for the Rosebud and Crow Creek Sioux tribes. We think this legislation is one of the steps necessary to clean up the confusion on the remote seller tax. We did have a good meeting with the Secretary the other day and several tribal governments with Senator Grove's assistance on getting that coordinated. There are a lot of issues with the back situation back to when Wayfair was implemented. We support this legislation, understanding that we will hopefully address these other issues. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Further proponent testimony. Seeing none in the room, any proponent testimony online? With none, we'll move to opponent testimony. Is there any opponent testimony on House Bill 1233? Seeing none in the room, is there any opponent testimony online? None online. With that, we will waive rebuttal, and we will move to committee questions. Are there questions from the committee? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I just have one quick clarifying question for the Secretary, please. Thanks again for being here. The additions in line 9 and 10 and 11 say, including the application thereof under chapters 10-64 and 10-65, and it's the same addition in both categories. And as I pull those chapters up, it says those are the collection of sales taxes from out-of-state sellers and the collection and remittance of taxes by marketplace providers. So it looks to me like basically what this is doing is giving some strength to the interaction and the application of the remote sales tax as it was decided by Wayfair. Am I understanding that correctly?
Madam Chair, Mike Howdyshell, Department of Revenue. You are. So what the additional language does is just acknowledges that As part of the discussions and the negotiations with the tribes on the retail sales tax, the use tax, the sales tax and use tax from remote sales and marketplace providers are going to be part of those discussions and ultimately part of the agreements. Those two chapters, 1064, which is remote sellers, and 1065, marketplace providers, are not tax imposition statutes. Rather, the taxes imposed under 1045 and 1046. So what it's doing is it's just clarifying that, the application of those two chapters, which requires legally remote sellers and marketplace providers to remit the retail sale and use tax under those two other chapters, is part of those discussions. And so it's really just a clarification in my view, and I think it's a good one, to make sure that everybody, as we're having these discussions between the state and the tribes, are mindful of those particular types of transactions that need to be discussed and included in the agreements.
Thank you. Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move to committee discussion and/or action.
Madam Chair,
Senator Grove.
I would like to make a motion of a due pass on House Bill 1233.
Second.
It's been moved by Senator Grove, seconded by Senator Blanc. Due pass on House Bill 1233. Comments on your motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. So just last week, we had quite an extensive conversation on these two very issues, the sales tax for remote sellers and the marketplace providers. And the bill that I brought has been a bill that has been brought consistently throughout the years. And so one of the things that this bill will do is end that conversation moving forward. There's still, we're still having conversations with the Department of Revenue between the tribes and the Department of Revenue on the old stuff, but this now would end any further conversation because it's in statute. And I just really appreciate the representative for bringing the bill, and also for Department of Revenue working alongside and standing with the bill. So I would just ask you to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments on the motion? Senator Blanc?
It's not all that often when we see Dior happy about somebody bringing a bill, and I think he's happy because it's not costing the state anything, and it's just bringing clarification.
Further comments? I would just commend both the sponsor and the Department of Revenue for coming together and bringing something and working this out ahead of time so that we can support it. So thank you for doing all the hard work and doing all the hard work ahead of time. And I'm happy to support this bill as well. With that, I will ask the Secretary to call the roll on the due pass motion for House Bill 1233. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no.
Senator Crabtree?
Aye.
Grove?
Aye.
Blanc?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Hulse, excused. Hone?
Aye.
Peterson?
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 1 excused.
With that, House Bill 1233 will go to the floor with a due pass motion. If there's no objection, I'm happy to put this on consent unless you would like to discuss this on the floor. Okay, we'll put this on consent then, which will be much appreciated as we're on crossover. So, all right, thank you very much. We will now move to House Bill 1260. It's an act to authorize the establishment of municipal property tax rebate programs. Do we have proponent testimony? I'm wondering if this is Representative Jameson's, if he's the prime on this, and I think he's in another committee, so I think we probably need to send for him. So we will be at ease for a minute while we send for Representative Jameson.
Thank you.
Senate taxation will now come back to order. We will proceed with Senate Bill 96, an act 196, an act to increase the income limits for property tax assessment freeze. Do we have any proponent testimony?
Madam Chair, Senator Chris Carr, representing District 11. And good morning. Thank you for your patience once again. I really appreciate it, all the committee members. Senate Bill 196 makes a targeted adjustment to the property tax assessment freeze program. It increases the income threshold for multi-member households from $65,000 to $85,000. Over the last several years, South Dakota homeowners have experienced substantial increases in property valuations. Along with that came rising property tax pressure. At the same time, we've seen home insurance premiums have increased, utility bills have climbed, groceries cost significantly more, healthcare expenses continue to rise. We saw some of the largest Social Security cost of living adjustments in decades, but those increases were not windfalls. They were responses to inflation. When two Social Security checks are combined, a married couple can exceed $65,000 in annual income, not because they're affluent, but because inflation has raised that nominal number. The assessment freeze program exists to prevent long-time homeowners from being taxed out of their homes due to rising valuations. But if income thresholds remain static while inflation pushes income upward on paper, the program slowly stops working as it was intended. SB 196 helps restore that balance. It adjusts the multi-member threshold that reflect today's economic reality. In 2027, it indexes that threshold to the greater of CPIW or Social Security COLA, ensuring that we're not back here every year or every few years chasing inflation. This protects married, retirees, grandparents, long-term South Dakotans who've built their lives here and simply want predictability in retirement. I have a table that I presented to you just to give you an idea. So this came out of the summer's property tax work group. And you can see the three different columns. The gross income was $45,000. It moved to $65,000. And now this bill would propose it to be $85,000. I give you the number of households that we're talking about. And this summer we heard that the utilization is estimated to be about 20%. That's what we've seen in these programs. So you're seeing 8,603 households that would likely utilize this program. In dollars and cents, you're talking about approximately $2.5 million of approximately $2 billion in future property tax dollar amounts. So I wanted to have you make sure you have the data, understand what's happening, what the dollar amounts are that we're talking about. The goal, again, is to help keep these individuals in their house that are on fixed income. And I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Further proponent testimony on Senate Bill 196.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Eric Nelson, Government Relations for AARP South Dakota and a registered lobbyist for AARP South Dakota. We're the consumer membership group representing the 50-plus population. We have nearly 100,000 members from across the state advocating for our 50-plus population. I ask you to support Senate Bill 196. We followed along as the summer study took a look at this issue, and even last year this issue was addressed. Part of the reason why AARP South Dakota supports this is that it's an existing program, and so there's no new paperwork necessary. As Senator Carr mentioned, it targets those that need it the most. We understand, and we've even heard in this morning that this committee, this legislature, it's a fine line to find property tax release, but still be able to provide the services that property tax provides for our local communities that our older South Dakotans, that our senior population relies on. Time and time again, our members tell us as an organization that one of the things they wish to do as they age is remain in their home, whether you're low income or not. And obviously this program is targeted to those that need it most. And then finally, Senator Carr also mentioned the utilization of the program. It's our hope to be a partner with the state and on some of these programs, which we have already, to promote these programs within the communities and to our members so that they are utilized, and expanding it modestly here via Senate Bill 196 is a good step, and we ask you to support the bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Further proponent testimony on Senate Bill 196. Any proponent testimony in the room? Any proponent testimony online? No online testimony. With that, we will take opponent testimony.
Madam Chair, members of the Senate Taxation Committee, Mike Howdy-Schell, the Department of Revenue. We do rise in opposition to Senate Bill 196. While, I fully appreciate Senator Carr's motives behind the bill, we think that this is essentially premature. If you remember, just last year in Senate Bill 216, that was the governor's property tax relief bill, the only property tax relief bill that ultimately made it across the finish line. We did make, a significant increase to the income limits for both single-member and multi-member households for the assessment freeze program. As Senator Carr referenced, it was $20,000 for both the single and multi-member households. This hasn't even gone into effect, this change, because of the timing of the legislation last year and the application deadline for the program, which is April 1st. This April 1st will be the first year that the new multi-member income limit of $65,000, which is also tied to the CPI, so that does increase annually, will go into effect. So we don't have any good metrics on how many households will apply for the program now under the significantly increased income limits. So I would say let's give it some time. As was mentioned by the proponents, the utilization of this program is far from 100% of eligible households. So let's give it some time and kind of see where we're at, and we can reevaluate. The other thing that I would mention, when you look at Census Bureau data, the median household income for seniors in South Dakota is about $54,000. So, when we take that into consideration, we think that the current $65,000 income limit for this particular program is meaningful and provides the type of relief that the program is set to provide, which is for our, lower and medium income type senior households in South Dakota. So, Madam Chair, I would just ask you to oppose the bill. Again, certainly well intended, but I just think it's a little bit too early to be kind of revising these limits again. Thank you.
Thank you. Further opponent testimony on Senate Bill 196.
Morning, Chair, members of the committee. Matthew Bogue, registered lobbyist for South Dakota Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau was one of the organizations last year, with, as Secretary Howdy-Schell mentioned, with Senate Bill 216, that part of those negotiations, and with one of those, as you all are aware of, we just increased the limits. Really just echo the comments that this is premature, well intended, and when we talk about property tax relief, definitely like to have it be targeted and meaningful, but this time just maybe a little premature, and wait a couple of years to see how everything goes with the Senate Bill 216. Thank you.
Thank you. Further opponent testimony. Any opponent testimony in the room? Any opponent testimony online? None online. Seeing no more opponent testimony, I will provide opportunity for rebuttal by the sponsor.
Well, Chris Carr, Senator, District 11. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. The thing I like is that we all agree that there's an issue here. It's just kind of picking where that is on the amount for the joint household. I think if I heard correctly, the dollar amount that is the average, that was for single. We're talking about multi-household incomes. I'm not sure it's premature myself, and I say that because this summer we traveled around the state. And not only did we have those meetings, but when you're on that task force, and if you're chairing that task force, you get a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails. And hearing from folks and their situation is what drove me to come up with this plan, this idea. I know the challenge of us trying to figure out real property tax relief in this state. I know it's important to us. What does that look like? Can we coalesce around an idea? This was something that came out of hearing the discussion and say, if nothing else, we take and prioritize the most vulnerable that potentially are getting priced out of their homes or expensed out of their homes to the rising costs of home ownership, the utilities, et cetera, that I talked about, and the rising cost of property taxes. When I would train appropriators, I would talk about how we have to prioritize. And I talk about the alligator getting closest to the boat, the fire getting closest to the town. And of all the property tax bills, I felt this really tried to prioritize those individuals that are the most vulnerable, they needed the relief the most. And I like to give numbers. I don't like to try to pass something without a full understanding, because you're going to have to explain this to others. You know, what we're looking at, when I told you it was about $2.5 million that we're talking about of approximately $2 billion in property taxes. If you owned $2,000, or if you had, a property tax bill that you paid every year is $2,000, that's going to increase it by $2.50. This is a shift. We're paying for these individuals, these folks that are South Dakotans that have lived in their home, trying to stay in their home. It increases the rest of us who aren't part of this program. It shifts that and it'd be $2.50. This is making some assumptions, and it's assuming that the whole state were a county too, because I don't know county by county how many individuals or households you have that fall into this category. But I just want to give you an idea of what we're really talking about in terms of dollars and cents and what's being shifted and who we're covering. I'd ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, I will open it up to committee questions. Any committee questions on Senate Bill 196?
Madam Chair.
Oh, go ahead, Senator Grove.
Sorry. For the prime sponsor. Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
So you probably just answered this, but I'm going to ask again. So what you're saying is the reason that you want to go up another $20,000 is, first of all, that's the household income. That's not a single individual, so it's household. But do you feel like there's the possibility? I think the average household income for seniors is $54,000. Are we too high if this is a low to moderate? If we're trying to reach low to moderate income retirees, do we go too high?
Yes.
Chris Carr, Senator District 11. Well, I guess I personally don't think so. I had to make a choice, and based on the data, based on all the conversations I've had with folks across the state, I felt that this was a pretty good number. None of these things are perfect. We're making choices in all of these. But I think it captures the folks that I think are the most vulnerable due to the rising costs of home ownership and the property tax burden that we've seen increase. I think this captures it and helps provide relief to those individuals. Hope that helps.
Further questions from the committee? Senator Blanc.
A couple of quick questions for Mike Howdy-Shell. Mr. Howdy-Shell, you had said in your testimony that you thought maybe we should give it some time to see if last year's legislation actually starts kicking in and working. When you say let's give it some time, what are you thinking?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Senator Blanc. You know, I'm not going to put kind of a number of years on it, but I do think it'd be good to see some data on how many folks that are newly eligible will apply for the program. Again, even at the old limit, prior to being increased, we didn't have 100% participation for every household that's eligible. For whatever reason, maybe it's lack of knowledge of the program, maybe it's just not wishing to seek this type of relief, but it was far below 100% participation, even at the much lower 45,000 household limit that was in place up to last year. So I think that, it would be wise just to give this, some time to really evaluate what the impact of the increase has been. And again, it was a considerable impact. It was $20,000. So I think that was meaningful, and I think that, it hopefully going to accomplish, I think the same thing that Senator Carr wants, which is providing some more targeted relief for our elderly homeowners.
Thank you, Mr. Howdy-Shell.
Follow-up?
Madam Chair, thank you. Yes, I have a follow-up. So the presumption by your answer, and I get that maybe you can't put an exact amount, but we're talking years, correct?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Senator Blanc, as soon as next year, we'll have at least 1 year of data to see, how many more applicants are eligible for the program and have applied. So I don't think it is, several years, maybe a year or two to really get a grasp on what the changes have made to the program and its participation. And again, just a reminder, it is currently tied to CPI, so even that 65,000 has gone up a little bit since even the law wasn't enacted. So that number will continue to grow, and the number of eligible applicants will increase as well as we go forward.
Follow-up?
Yes, thank you. Last year, my first week here in taxation, I asked you a question. I said, out of all of the tax bills that we're going to have come across our desks, what type of tax bill do you think that we can get passed? And I hope you'll remember, but you had told me, well, something that probably gives property tax relief for our seasoned citizens. And we didn't get that done last year, and we haven't gotten it done this year. And I agree with the premise of the bill that we need to do something for those who are most vulnerable, even though none of us like a tax shift. But for those purposes, I'm going to be in support of this bill.
Thank you. We will put that in the comments section of our proceedings, unless you had a question. Okay, we duly noted for comments. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Madam Chair, I'd have a question.
Yes, Senator Crabtree.
Thanks. Go Senator Carr.
Okay.
Madam Chair. Yes. Thank you. Senator, we had a pretty good, I like the direction you're heading, looking at existing programs. That's generally the easiest way to go about these. We just saw a bill fail on the Senate floor last week. It was Senate Bill 126. The argument made against it was that it's shifting those costs from a population I think we all want to serve out to a wider base. That was the argument made. Tell me how this is any different than what we saw with Senate Bill 126.
Senator Carr.
Madam Chair, I don't remember what Senate Bill 126 is.
Senator Hone probably remembers. So it was Senator Hone's bill regarding veterans tax exemption for the disabled.
Well, I will tell you that I guess, Madam Chair, Chris Carr, Senate District 11, I don't like to talk about a different bill during a bill hearing, and the reasons that I may or may not have supported it, or, but I guess it wouldn't be because of that shift. We've made decisions, I voted for appropriations consistently that have helped our elderly and disabled, and we've chose winners and losers based on what I told you earlier by prioritizing who needs it the most. What fire is getting closest to town. And so I guess I don't know what analogy you want me to draw to 126, but I've acknowledged that this is a shift. I acknowledge why I think it's a shift that should be prioritized by this body, especially one that wants to provide property tax relief in a meaningful way. I hear the talk about let's give it some time and assess it. I've heard that year after year on several programs that the administration or somebody is trying to fight. And I ask you, what does that look like? In a year or two, are we going to reconvene a property tax group or summer study and travel around the state and look at this again? Who's going to do that? I doubt the Department of Revenue is going to send people around the state knocking on doors, talking to folks and saying, hey, how do we feel? Did we cover it? Is this good? What does that mean? We're going to reassess it. We're here, we're now. I think the feedback is in. I've given you my thoughts and I try to justify how I've come up with this, what the shift looks like, what it's really going to cost us, and you have to determine if it's worth keeping our elderly and disabled in their homes or people on their fixed incomes. The shift is greater if you have more value too. So take that in consideration. It's not just a straight proportional shift. You're not hurting other folks that just didn't quite meet the bubble. The shift is going to be disproportionate on those that have more value or wealth in property ownership. You like that or not? There's like I said, there's trade-offs and nothing's perfect. But if you want to provide that relief to those folks that need it the most, if they get kicked out of their home, where do they go? If they can't afford to be in their home, where do they go? And what does that cost the state? You want to talk about putting them in assisted living or some sort of long-term living situation? All of a sudden we're using Medicaid dollars because they're going to burn through their personal money really fast. Hope that helps, Senator. Okay.
Further questions from the committee? We do have another bill, so we need to wrap this up quickly. Senator Hulse?
Okay. What, if this is for the prime or for AARP, whoever has the statistics, I know data and numbers are really important to the prime. And so what is the average income of seniors in South Dakota for people that would, of the age that would qualify for this program?
I don't have that exact number. I don't know if I phoned a friend. Yeah, they might have some better data for you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Senator Hulse, Eric Nelson with AARP South Dakota. I can't give you a broad picture, but what I can say is South Dakota seniors that are on Social Security, about 20% of our seniors rely on Social Security purely for their primary and only income in the state.
Madam Chair, just a quick follow-up.
Okay.
And just for the record, what would be the annual income of someone just on Social Security as an individual?
Oh, I haven't seen that number in a while. I should know it. I think it's around $20,000, something like that. Madam Chair, Eric Nelson, AARP
Yes.
South Dakota. Either upper teens or lower 20s for
So
an individual.
40,000 roughly if
Correct.
two
Yes,
people.
Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions, or can we move to discussion and or action? All right, let's move to discussion and or action.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to the 41st day.
Comment on your motion?
Yeah, I just am a little frustrated that last week we had a bill that was going to target relief towards a population of 4,000 people that was killed because it was a shift and was going to be too much targeted relief. And so it seems like the same principle is happening here. And if we're really trying to target relief towards the people that need it most, if a big part of the population only, even with two incomes on Social Security, are going to be making no more than $40,000 a year, then why are we setting the limit at almost double that? And I guess I, as the younger member of this body, am always cautious to increasingly have programs that target seniors because while, yes, you're on a fixed income and you can't go back to work, younger people also can't go to their boss and ask for a raise just because their property tax bill went up, and their property tax bills are going up at a rate faster than what raises are going up as well. And so I just appreciate the good senator bringing the bill. I think it needs to be a discussion as to whether or not our amounts are appropriate, but the fact that we don't have even the statistics as to what the average income is for these people, I don't know how we got to this number.
Further comments on the motion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm supporting the motion. Opposition's testimony resonated with me just a little bit more than the previous speaker's comments, but just, I mean, we made some changes last year. We haven't even had really a full year of those changes being in effect. And so we're making a decision with very limited data. And so that's why I'm supporting the motion.
Thank you. Further comments on the motion? So I have a couple comments. Prior to Senate Bill 216 last year, serving on appropriations, I saw these types of programs a lot. And we were way behind in our income limits. It was almost virtually impossible for someone to qualify for one of these programs. And so we have been trying to get those income limits up to a more reasonable level. And 216 made progress in that direction. And I supported that. I do think we still lag behind. And the benefit of having an income limit is that we know that the folks who are getting it need it, as opposed to being only based on property value or not having some sort of income limit attached to it as a criteria. So I think this makes sense. I think we need to sort of get with the times and make sure our limits do apply. So I will be supporting the bill. I mean, I will be supporting the bill, but I will not be supporting the 41st day motion. So with that, I would like the secretary to call the roll on the motion to send Senate Bill 196 to the 41st day. Those in favor of the 41st day say aye. Those opposed, no.
Senator Crabtree?
Aye.
Senator Grove?
No.
Blanc?
No.
Davis?
Aye.
Hulse?
Aye.
Hone?
No.
Peterson?
No.
Madam Chair, you have 3 yeas, 4 nays.
With that, the 41st day motion has failed. Is there another motion?
Madam Chair.
Senator Blanc.
I'd like to make a motion of due pass.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Senator Blanc, seconded by Senator Grove, that Senate Bill 196 go to the floor with a due pass motion. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Crabtree?
No.
Grove?
Aye.
Blanc?
Aye.
Davis?
No.
Hulse?
No.
Hone? Aye. Peterson?
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 3 nays.
With that, Senate Bill 196 will go to the floor with a due pass motion. We will now move to House Bill 1260, our last bill of the day. Do we have any proponent testimony?
Hello, Madam Chair. Greg
morning.
Jamison. Good morning. Greg Jamison, District 12, Sioux Falls. Hopefully this bill finds you in good spirits. 1260 is a product that came from our summer task force on property taxes. What we learned was that those closest to the problem have the tools to solve it, and in a lot of ways. And what we found is that the city of Sioux Falls, because of its home rule charter, has the ability to implement and does implement a property tax rebate program. When I learned about that, it was seemed as, well, there's a great tool for most anybody to have, but because of their special status as a chartered city, they were able to do it. So I wanted to give this tool and its availability to all municipalities across the state. So I ask for your approval.
Thank you. Do we have any further proponent testimony on House Bill 1260? Seeing none, do we have any opponent testimony on House Bill 1260? With that, I'll waive rebuttal and open it to committee questions. Seeing no questions, I will open it to committee discussion and or action.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Make a due pass motion.
Thank you. Due pass motion by Senator Crabtree, second by Senator Grove. Hulse, okay. Discussion on your motion.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Mostly just for the good spirits joke as we approach crossover day. Anyways, I just picking up on what the good representative said. I'm looking through this and a little surprised that honestly we're finding that we need to put that in place now. And so it's just good common sense legislation brought forward by a very thoughtful representative.
Thank you. Further comments on the motion? Okay, seeing none. We will now vote on the motion to pass on House Bill 1260. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Crabtree,
Aye.
Grove,
Aye.
Blanc,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Hulse,
Aye.
Hone, Peterson.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
With that, House Bill 1260 will go to the floor with a do pass motion. It is eligible for consent if there are no objections. Any objections? Okay. 1260 will go on the Senate calendar on consent. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carry. We are adjourned.
From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. From choir to debate to theater, SDPB shines a spotlight on South Dakota's talented students through SDHSAA All-State Fine Arts programming. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. Every day, SDPB connects South Dakotans with stories that inform, inspire, and bring us together. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB is your home for fact-based journalism, connecting South Dakotans with news they can trust and stories that matter. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From children's programs to in-depth documentaries, SDPB sparks curiosity and lifelong learning in every South Dakotan. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB brings South Dakotans together, telling the stories that unite small towns, big ideas, and the people who make our state shine. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB shares the voices and experiences of South Dakotans, preserving our stories, our culture, and our sense of place. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. As South Dakota's public media network, SDPB serves everyone with transparency, integrity, and commitment to open access. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB helps shape South Dakota's future by educating, informing, and inspiring the next generation of thinkers, leaders, and creators. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB serves South Dakota through an interconnected communication system that is on 24/7, 365. The first place for Amber Alerts, public safety announcements, and EAS messages. SDPB keeps public servants and citizens informed. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB.